Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. Today I'm teaching my daughter how to sharpen, and you can come along for the ride. Let's dive in. Alright, so basically the first thing we need to talk about is aggregate. So basically what happens is as the chisel goes over the stone, there's all these things that go in there and scratch it and take off steel. So basically imagine sandpaper sanding down the steel, and that's what we're doing. But different types of stones sharpen differently. I love using diamond stones because they work the way you think sandpaper. They're just aggregate that scrapes through it. Water stones, on the other hand, are different. You have to actually submerge them in water. They have to be filled with water. And what happens is when you actually grind on top, you break off the aggregate on top and all that sand moves around on top of the plate. So what happens is as this goes on there, all that aggregate actually comes loose and creates a slurry on top. And as you move the chisel, that slurry is actually moving around. And sometimes the slurry goes that way, and sometimes it goes that way, and sometimes it's actually scratching that way. And you get this kind of orbital pattern on your actual steel. So the scratch patterns go in all different directions so they disappear easier. Whereas with diamonds, you get these straight scratch patterns. Oil stones are a little between the two. They don't rub off quite as fast, but they do a little bit of both. There's also diamond paste and using sandpaper and all of those different things. And each one of them has their pros and cons. But the big thing with diamonds is there's really no maintenance to them. With these, when you actually create that slurry on top, you actually take off some material and they start to get dished out. And so occasionally you have to flatten these back out. And you can flatten them by rubbing them on another plate or having 3 of them to rub back and forth. Or you can use a diamond stone and flatten them on the diamond stone. And in that case, why not just sharpen on the diamond stone? So these don't require to be soaked. They don't require flattening. They're just quick and easy, and they sharpen much, much faster because diamond is harder than silica or whatever is in these. And different stones are going to have different hardnesses. But diamond, it's the hardest to get. So these cut fast, efficiently, and there's no maintenance to them. So they're just quick and easy. The next thing we want to do is learn how to hold the chisel. And what I want to do is I'm going to start on my coarsest stone, and I'm going to put it flat on the stone, and I'm going to try and feel the bevel. Now, a lot of times when you're hand sharpening, you're not going to actually have a solid bevel to work with, so you may or may not be able to feel it. And so I'll get down there and tell you, you want to actually make it right about there. But it feels like there's a little bit of rock in that, which means that if I sharpen with this down, I'm just going to be taking off material on the back here. And if I raise it up onto the nose, then I'm just taking off material on the nose. I want to take it off all the way along. But as I move, there's going to be a natural little bit of curvature. So getting a perfect bevel is almost impossible freehand, but it can be done. You're going to take the chisel, put it in the bevel, and I want 2 fingers on here like this. So put it on your stone. Okay. Your other hand has 3 fingers underneath, 1 back here, thumb to a line. Okay. And then we're just going to start at the back here, and we're going to push it forward. Not putting a lot of weight into it. We're just letting the weight of the chisel do it. Just push it forward. When I'm sharpening, my hands just like that. And what I want to do is I don't want to just be doing that because now my fulcrum is somewhere right here. And so it's really, really close to this. And that means I'm doing a lot of curvature in what I'm carving. Now, eventually your skill will get to the point where you'll be able to do that. But when you're learning, you want to get the fulcrum as far away from this as you can. So just like if I have a long stick, my sweep, if I'm doing this much of a sweep, the actual curvature doesn't look very big. But if I have a short stick, that curvature over the same distance looks very big. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move at my ankles. And I'm going to hold everything in place. I'm going to lock my arm, my shoulder, everything like that. I'm going to actually tense up my core, hold it in place, and I'm actually going to move everything from the ankles. See how I'm doing that? This takes a bit of control. It's hard to learn. And then after sharpening several times, then you move the fulcrum up to your knees. And you keep your feet flat on the ground. And then you move it up to your hip. And then you move it out to your shoulder until eventually you're just being able to do that. Now that takes a year or 2 to be able to get that down, but it's very doable, and you'll find that, oh my, that's actually getting all the way across. All right, show me what you got. Okay, you're moving from the ankle. That's nice, that's what we want. And so just keep on locking that in and go all the way from one end of the stone to the other. Try and make it all the way to the other end of the stone. There you go. And just keep practicing that until your body gets used to it, and then you can start moving at the knee and farther up towards your shoulders. So with diamonds though, as you start sharpening, you'll notice you actually start to get dirt in here. It looks like that. It's black junk. It's actually iron coming off of the chisel. So what we do is we put a little bit of lubricant on there. It doesn't need to be anything like you'd have for Waterstone. All this does is it pulls that steel out and allows it to move around. And it gets it out of the way, because eventually if that steel impacts into the aggregate, those aggregate won't be able to cut. So just putting that little bit on there allows you to then move it around and keep it clean. And then when you're done, you just grab a rag and wipe it off. Diamond plates, you can use them dry. Some people just put water on there. The problem with water is if it gets down into the side and starts to fill into it, it can rust it. Yours are actually made of aluminum, so they won't rust. But I actually just use a cheap window cleaner because it evaporates quickly and it doesn't leave much behind. So it actually works out really, really well, as long as I wipe it off each time. So what we're looking for is we want to see those scratch patterns going all the way across. And as long as our chisel is going forward and backward in the same line, we should see those scratches, specifically on the diamond, coming from the tip and back. And what we want to do is we want to get those scratches all the way across and nice, consistent, and we want to feel a slight burr on the back. So here's Melody's, and you can see she's got good scratches back here, and then she has another set of scratches up here, so she's hit the whole spot, but some of this she was sharpening back on the heel, and some of it she was sharpening up on the tip. So she basically has two different bevels here. We're generally shooting with a bench chisel for something around 25 degrees-ish. The higher the angle, you go up to like a 30 degree, and you start lifting it up higher and higher, you're going to get an edge that lasts longer, but it takes more force to get into the wood. And conversely, if you start taking the angle down to like a 20 degree, it'll go into the wood very easily, but the edge will dull out quickly. So you're always playing that balance. 25 for a normal bench chisel is pretty good. If I'm using a mortising chisel, I might go up to 30. My carving tools, I might take all the way down to 17. And that's just something you'll learn over time with what angle you're using. So let's spend a little bit of time on the coarsest stone and get a nice clean burr on there. So let's have some fun. Go for it. Okay, raise your heel up a little bit. You're too low. There you go, right about there. And that's the angle you want to learn to. I never check my bevels anymore to know what they are. I just know that that's the angle I put my chisels at. That's the angle I put my plane irons at. That's the angle of my carving chisels. I just know what that angle feels like. Until eventually you can be able to go faster, but this takes a couple years of practice, so don't worry about it. Okay, you got all these scratches back here, but nothing up on the tip. Okay. So that means you are grinding here, and you need to be grinding here. Okay, so lift it up a little higher. Get the fingers a little closer to the edge. There you go. And go for that. Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah, that's nice. So here's Melody's now, and she's got nice clean scratches nose to toe, and I feel a slight burr on the back. The one I'm working on is a lot older, but I got good scratches all the way along, and I've got a fairly heavy burr right in the middle because it was a bit crowned there. But you just want to be able to slide your finger over and you'll feel ever so slight. The bigger the burr, the more you have to be careful, because a big burr on there will actually rip the tip off when it comes off. Small, delicate burrs are what you really, really want. And for those of you watching, if you really want to know more about the burr, I have a whole video where I actually show it under the microscope and explain what you should be feeling. The burr is really the greatest indicator of how sharp your chisel is. So if you want to see that, there's links down below. So what we've got here is we did everything on our coarse stone. And this is what we use to grind things down. If our edge isn't that bad, we might not do that. We might just start here. Or if it's really not, we're just cleaning it up, we might start here. If we're just keeping it absolutely keen, what I'll use for carving chisels, we might just go to the strop. But how bad your edge is how far you come back. This is for reshaping tools. This is for sharpening them. This is for honing them. This is just keeping the edge really keen. But now we have a burr on the back. One of the things you may notice is your edge might not be perfectly square to the side, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be square. But if you find that it's getting out, and mine is out a little ways, this is the long side and this is the short side. What I'm doing is when I sharpen, all I'm going to do is put more pressure on the side I want to grind down more. So if this is my long side, I'm just going to move my fingers rather than being in the middle. I'm going to slide them over to this side, and that little bit of difference is going to create more pressure over here and slowly take off more material on this side. And then eventually I'll notice that it's now skewed out the other direction, and I'll move my fingers to the other side. So I'm just always visually looking at it. If it's out of square visually, then I just put a little more pressure on the side that it needs to come out of. Otherwise, don't worry about it too much. They don't have to be square. We just sharpened the bevel. Well, what about the back? Usually, you never touch the back. The back does not need to be hit, unless it's a new chisel or it's been worked on for a while. In that case, we're going to hit the back. Yours doesn't need to, it's good, but I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So I'm going to do it a little bit on the back of this one. And what I'm looking for is a scratch pattern that goes all the way across the tip. I don't need my chisel to be perfectly flat. I just need the scratches across the tip there. Here you can see how I have scratches all the way across here, except for there's a little section there missing. So in this case, because this is an old chisel, I just got this at a auction, we actually want to go until we get rid of that, which is only going to take me a little bit. I don't need it to be flat all the way back. There's a bit of a dish here. You can see I'm scratching back here. So I don't need to worry about this. I just need it to be clean right across the tip, because all we're doing is we're bringing that tip down to a matching line. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this stone, and then we'll move on. Okay, so after a little bit of work here, we now have a nice clean surface all the way across there. It's a little bit in the corner, but most of that is actually the burr, because now the burr is actually pushed around the other side because we did this side. Our bevel is ready to go, and I can feel that burr on the bevel side now. Now, because I just put all of these scratches into here, I need to make sure I'm doing the back on all of my other stones. Because yours has been cleaned up in the past, yours is known flat, you don't need to touch the back on the stones. All you need to work on is the bevel. The back is something you only hit once, and after that, the back is good. You don't need to touch it again. You only need to hit the bevel. So we've got this with all of these scratches running in line with the chisel. I want to take it on to the next stone, but it's going to be hard. I want to get rid of these scratches, and I want to see new scratches, because if I'm pushing in the same direction on this one, now I'm going to be running into the problem that my scratches are going the same direction. So what I'm going to do is actually turn the chisel at a slight angle, and so now my scratches will be going diagonally across this. And once I see all of the straight scratches are gone, and I just see new diagonal scratches, then we know we're good on this plate. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So on yours, you have a bit of a burr on the flat side. Don't flip it over and take it off. We don't take off the burr until we get to the end. What we're going to do for that diagonal is we're going to do the same movement. It's just rather than keeping our body this way, we're actually just going to turn our body a little bit so that we're now running that same way this way rather than pushing that way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So just turn your body a little bit so you're moving diagonal. Let's see what you got. Turn your body a little bit and do it in. And I'm going to work on the back of mine as well as the bevel, because I need to get rid of those scratches from the previous one. So let's see what you got here, Melody. You have diagonal scratches back here, but not up at the tip. We need to actually polish those down. That means that the heel of your chisel is down too low. You need to raise the heel of the chisel up to actually be sharpening on the tip of the chisel. On mine, you can see the scratches going all the way across at an angle on both the flat and the bevel. It almost looks like a fingerprint stripe as opposed to scratches. We're getting rid of actual scratches and getting it more with like a smear pattern on there. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. So just keep up that motion. And after you've done 10, 15 strokes, here, wipe it off. Let's see what it looks like. There, after a few strokes, now you've gotten it. You got to polish down on that tip. That's what we're looking for right there. So now that we've done that, now we're going to move on to the fine stone. So for the fine plate, we're just going to do the exact same thing, but we want to bring the pattern back because we'll do every other one. First one is in line, second one's diagonal, third one's in line, or whichever way you want, as long as every one is different. Add a little bit of lubricant and go to town. Actually, I want this one to be straight. And we're just going to do the exact same thing we did before. This step actually doesn't take that much. It's usually only about that. And you get this surface that's, ooh la la, that's pretty. So just like before, go at it. You got to lift your handle up a little bit. You're letting it down a bit. Lift your handle up. There you go, right there. And then move around the stone. Try and use the whole thing up, all the way top to bottom, and then move side to side. Yeah, just like that. Lift the handle up just a little more. There you go, right there. That's what you're looking for. And it doesn't take very long, just make it happen. Okay, yeah, that's what we're looking for. Nice clean surface all the way across. There's a little bit of faceting on there, but that's something you'll learn over time. So now we've got a very, very fine burr all the way across the back. Just barely feel it. And that's what we want. The smaller the burr, the better. The bigger the burr, the more it's going to want to take off the edge when it comes. So at this point, we're going to do the polishing, and that is the strop. And this is the magical tool. See, some people who use water stones will go up to like 16,000 grit, whereas you can do the same thing with a strop. The nice thing about the grit is it doesn't push in, whereas with the strop, you can get a little bit of rounding over if you put too much pressure into it. So you want to put a lot of pressure in. But we're just going to do the same thing we did before, except for we're not going to push forward. We're just going to pull back. So let me show you the whole process. I actually need to polish my back on mine, so I'm going to do about 10 strokes flat on the back, and I'm just going to go into it. Now you see how this is getting kind of dark? Mine is starting to get loaded up, and when it gets this thick on there, sometimes I'm going to grab a card scraper and just scrape off the big junk that's on top. And then I can come in with my honing compound, and I use a chrome oxide. This is something I actually sell in my shop if you want to go buy some, Melody. And I just want to take it to green again, and this cuts much, much faster. So now I can come in and I'm just pulling back and I'm polishing out the back of this, and I get a really shiny, reflective surface. So now that I've done the back, now we're going to treat it the same way as you would. I'm just going to do 6 to 10 strokes on the bevel. I'm not going forward. I'm just pulling back, not a huge amount of pressure. I'm not wading into it. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on it until I get, oh yeah, it looks pretty. And then I'm just going to go back and forth. Back, bevel, back, bevel, back, bevel, and that is sharp. And you can test it a couple different ways. You can put it on here and just see if it grabs the thumbnail. That lets you know it's sharp. You just let it touch and it grabs. Or you can actually use it to shave very carefully. But you can see how all those are coming off. This is called hand tool pattern baldness. But that's what you're looking for. You want something really, really nice and sharp. Now yours, this is one, it's a special one from Zinwu that's pre-impregnated, so you don't need to put that in there. So you can do the same thing on that. So just 5 or 6 strokes. Now start back here and pull forward. You never push back on a strop. Otherwise you're just going to gouge into it. You can put a little more pressure than that. There you go, right about there. So 6 to 10 strokes back. Okay, let me see what you got. See, that looks much better. You want to put a little more pressure into it. Do a few more strokes, just a little more pressure. Okay, let's see what you got. Yeah, see, that's nice. Good polish on there. So we still have that burr on this side. So you do it by the back, the bevel, the back, the bevel, the back, the bevel. Now flip it over to the bevel. So back, bevel, back, bevel. So you're bending that burr back and forth. A little more pressure when you're on the back. Okay, let me see what you got. Oh yeah, so what I want you to do is just place it on your thumbnail and see if it just grabs. Feel that? That's sharp. Do you want to try sharpening here? Yeah. Turn around, bevel down. Just a second, just a second. You get the camera on it. I want to catch the blood. Little hairs, look at that. Your first hand tool pattern baldness. And there you go, freehand sharpening. You don't need a jig, and it's the exact same thing for a plane blade or a chisel, and everything is just a rendition of that. It's just bringing those two planes into a nice clean surface. No need to mess with the back bevel, no need to mess with the secondary bevel, none of the extras, just sharpen it. And once you get the back flat, you're just working on the bevel every time. So now, when you damage a chisel, you can fix it, rather than just waiting for me to sharpen it. So I hope you guys like this. If there's something you learned, let me know down in the comments down below. And if you want to see Melody, she's actually going to be doing a video on her channel where she's going to talk through it and talk about the things that she has learned. So if you want to see that from a 14-year-old perspective, then head on over to her channel, Melody's Workbench. I'll leave a link to it down below. So on that note, comments, like, share, subscribe, all those things down below. Thank you. It does help out the channel, as well as there's a bunch of names over there. Those are some of the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, gorgeous people over on Patreon. Without patrons, we wouldn't exist. You guys are the ones that make this channel happen, so thank you for that. And if you'd like to find out more about that, links down below. We're also doing a special giveaways and regular shirts and things like that, so let me know when you want to see those, because they're coming up. I think I'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye!
Kids tend to cost a lot of money. You could say they're always chiseling you, but that's okay. She's sharp.